This Steve Jones Show podcast is now loading. The Steve Jones Show podcast is presented by Sunbury Motor Company and Purdy Insurance. Bringing you an in-depth look at Penn State sports and more. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. The Steve Jones Show is presented by Sunbury Motor Company and Purdy Insurance. Now, from the Sunbury Motor Studio, here's Steve Jones.
This opening half hour brought to you by Purdy Insurance. Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com. Auto, home, life, business, boat, motorcycle. They do a great job of making sure you're fully covered, and they do a great job of saving you money. And that's what customer service is all about, caring about your needs and taking care of you. That's customer service. And they're great people who are great pros at Purdy Insurance, Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com. Don't forget about the Purdy Memorial Golf Tournament, which will take place at the Susquehanna Valley Country Club on Wednesday, August 5th. Get your team out there to benefit the Greater Susquehanna Valley YMCA. It's the 35th annual Truman H. Purdy Memorial Golf Tournament. We're proud to be a part of it, and yes, I will be there. I know it's the opening day of football practice, but I think I can bypass the opening day of football practice for the great Purdy family and for the great cause of the Greater Susquehanna Valley YMCA. I think I'll be able to catch up quickly on day 2 on August 6th, so I have no problem there. So get your team together. I look forward to seeing all of you out there for it. Should be a lot of fun. Oh, it's always a lot. That tournament's always a lot of fun. I have a blast at that tournament. I don't play in as many of them as I used to. I've been a little more selective about it. Coaches versus Cancer I'll play in. As an example, Nate Stupar has a tournament now. I'll play in that, and I'll play in this. And of course the Big Ten one. Of course, that's just the guys getting together and doing their deal. Like we always do every year. That's a couple days of fun. We're trying to. I think we've convinced Gary Dolphin of Iowa that that really he should be hosting next year. I think we've kind of guilted him into it. But that's what I'll do. So it tells you everything that I will play in the Purdy tournament every year. So Gerry Dulac, U.S. Open, plus a couple of football questions coming up for him at 1:35. Mark Loganrich at 2:05 today. It's amazing. Dan Patrick, I don't want to see him retire because I just think he is so good at what he does, along with everybody that works with him, by the way. That entire group. Because he gives... There's so many things that he talks about that we talk about on the show all the time. And what he talked about today was how I was going to lead. I was actually going to lead with the World Cup. So often you will hear me talk about a big game. And I'll say one of the keys to a big game is that you need your stars to be your stars. Your stars for a reason. You need to step forward and come up big in big moments. And yesterday in the World Cup, we saw that. Because Mbappe for France has 2 goals. Hey, what an incredible day. That is the moment of the tournament so far. Oh, wait a minute. Messi has a hat trick. Oh. And if you go back to Friday night, Christian Pulisic was brilliant in the first half of that game. In the first half of that match, Pulisic was brilliant. I mean, quick, decisive, great field vision, pitch vision, whatever you want to call it. Who cares? And so you sit there and you know, and then Flo, of course, had the two goals. And as I said before, it started. I said the U.S. needed to have its strikers. They've had 10 years of not having great strikers. I said, well, guess what? I said, this guy might be the answer. Well, he had 2 goals against Paraguay. Now, they have to continue this. They play Australia on Friday at 3 up in Seattle. But you need your stars to be the stars. And when you're playing in the U.S., U.S. fans know Mbappe. U.S. fans obviously know Messi. I mean, Messi's playing for Miami FC right now. He's done so for the past couple of years, but they know him. And to have those names come through in a World Cup on U.S. soil, it's great for the sport in this country. It's great for the sport in this country. And it's funny, that's why I don't want to see. Well, I guess Dan has given a date as to when he's going to end his show. And I completely understand why he wants to do it. Okay, I get it. I mean, I do get it. Okay? And let me just see here. Dan Patrick. I just want to at least make sure I've got the information right. Dan Patrick show. Let's see what it says here. Ding, 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 ding. Full interview. Still going. Here we go. Maybe this is it. Announced he'll retire early 2028. So he's got a year and a half to go on the show. I totally understand why he wants to stop. I got it. I totally get it. But boy, I hate losing a voice of reason and perspective. And I'm so glad we carry the show. But losing that voice of reason and perspective in a world of hot takes. Hot takes are intriguing in that you throw out a hypothetical on a subject and you talk about it. I do not remotely find it intriguing at all. I don't. You know, to me, it's I don't. I hate dealing in hypotheticals. I just don't like doing it. I mean, other people. I mean, but it's also a draw because it'll draw you to listen to. Like, oh, well, that's. And I know that, as an example, Rob Parker, who I think at one point was with Fox, was teaching a course similar to mine at USC, and he emphasized hot takes. Like, okay. Like under the categories, like, really? And I just don't. I mean, I guess as an entertainment form, it's fine. But look, we try to entertain a little bit here, a little bit. That explains the presence of the suit. It's like having a walking, talking entertainment center. But I can't do a show like that where you just making up stuff as you go, and that's what these guys do. They make up stuff as they go. I'm like, I don't find that intriguing at all. Dan Patrick doesn't do that. Oh, he and the Danettes may sit there and talk, whatever. But I just don't want to see that show go away. Well, he can be on at 7 o'clock on all he wants. Doesn't mean, no offense, but sorry, that's not my way of doing things. I mean, sorry, I don't find that. And you as an audience may love that, and I got it. If you love that more than what you like what I do, okay, so be it. Yeah. Okay. I mean, I'm just. We all have to have our own way of doing things. I just can't do it that way. Just not me. Because there's no offense. I mean, I don't know. To me, hot takes are an easy thing to do. You just make up stuff as you go. And then you debate and yell back and forth like, ooh, that's really, I guess some people think that's good radio. I don't. I think it's bad radio. But they may think what I do is bad radio. So who knows? I just sit back and just try and do the show my own way. And I've done, I've been here sitting in this chair for 15 years. Evidently, you don't think it's that bad. You think it's that bad. You know what's interesting, I find, and I think I told everybody yesterday what's going on here right now as we make the countdown to Adidas. What is today, the 17th? So we've got 2 weeks, then it's Adidas in mass. I saw Jonathan Salazar yesterday, who's one of the great trainers in the country. And he's moved on from being the basketball trainer after 20 years to be in charge of all of them at Penn State. So Saz, I was over at the Jordan Center after a basketball practice on Monday, and Saz is walking out, and he had a couple of boxes, like I think it was a box of shoes and something else that they got from the equipment room. And he said there was a friend of his or somebody like that, and they were like, they wanted to give him something. I said, oh, nice and easy. I said, right when the Nike fire sale's about to take place. He goes, exactly. So that's why I did this now. So basketball is doing group work right now. Guards in one session, forwards in another. That's this week. I think by the time we get to the middle of next week, Mike's going to then bring the entire team together and they're going to work out together. This is all part of the 8-week plan. They do the group stuff early, then they bring everybody together. So by the middle of next week, I would expect them to be then doing, as instead of just groups, team work. And you get an hour a day. You have 4 hours total during the course of the week. So that's where they are now. They've got everybody here but two. And they may not get here. I think you realize they're the two European players because they're still playing right now. So they're expected to be here before the summer's out. And then football is halfway through the off-season team work area. The way Matt's doing it is there's 6 practices that the coaches are at, and then he's going to let the coach. And then after next week, they're going to do one more tomorrow, then 2 more next week, and then he's going to let the coaches go for a little bit. He is a big believer in when it's time to work, you work. And there's also a time for you to be with your family and do things. He's a big believer in that. And so I did not go to the basketball workout yesterday because the timing of it was such I was not done with the show until 3, and they finished at 3:15. So, I mean, I'm not going to go over there for 5 minutes. I think it's going to be the same today. Tomorrow they're going to extend and go into a different shift tomorrow. So I'll be able to go over and see a more extensive one for basketball tomorrow in the group work. Although I did talk to Byers, the kid from Miami of Ohio, on Monday, out of Chambersburg, who I think he's got a chance to be a terrific scorer here. He's a terrific scorer at Miami, regardless of who they were playing. And so I'll get a better look at them probably tomorrow, and they're off Friday. And then football, I've been going to I went to all 3 of the ones I've had so far, and then I'll go to the last 3 tomorrow, and then Tuesday, Thursday next week. Again, because they've got more players out there, more players are back, more players are in the mix as opposed to the spring because a lot of guys have recovered. Right? It's great seeing Tony Rojas out there running around right now. It's great seeing Anthony Donko out there working, and again, this is all non-contact stuff, but it's great to see him out there working on the offensive line again, just as a couple of examples. Esgleden and Chase Sowell are both out there running routes with the wideouts. I mean, that's great. So, I mean, and you knew they were close to doing that, all of them, at the end of the spring anyway. So that's not like an update beyond updates where you sit back and go, oh, hey, what's going on there? I mean, in other words, what we told you in the spring that they were on schedule to be at, they're all on schedule. They're all on schedule to be where they are right now. Okay. That's a good thing. But that's where they are. And what's interesting is that I have a number of people that will come up to me, and they've been asking me, is Matt really like he seems? Or is that, I said, no, I said, it's even more so. Like, when I talk about down to earth, like, yeah, the whole staff's like that. I mean, they coach hard, but at the same time, they're just down to earth people, all of them. All right. Now we'll see if all this approach pays off in the wins people hope, right? Because I love the approach. The staff is incredible to deal with, and now we're going to find out eventually, starting on September 5th, how it translates into games. Having a starting quarterback that they know like the back of their hand, and he knows them like the back of his hand, you can't put a price on that. You can't. And there's enough guys, Sowell, Esgleden, Bramer and Hansen and, Burr up front, that know the approach of the staff. They know how Mouse wants to call it. Taylor Mauser, the offensive coordinator and tight end coach, they know how Mouse wants to call it, why he wants to call it, how he wants to call it. And I think that's important. I think that part of it to me is important because it reduces the learning curve. And that's really important. And I feel like what's happened, and Matt made this point to me the other day, because he'll just walk up to me in practice and he'll talk. He doesn't have to. What's odd is I don't have to approach him, right? He'll just walk over to me and just say, hey, hey. He always starts, hey, what's going on, or what do you know, or whatever, right? And then we'll just talk. And he said that it was great that when they came, that things were coming together in the spring in terms of meshing everything together, which you need to have. Sometimes some teams don't, no matter what happens. I saw this with Indiana basketball last year. I never felt like they meshed all year. In watching them, I just felt like he felt like when they came back from the spring, he felt like they meshed together even more so he could see it. And I'd said to him, I said, well, probably because when they came back, they came back and looked around, it was all the same guys who were their teammates all spring. He says, exactly. So we're in a world in college sports where the meshing together is so important because you can't have factions on a team. You're all going to put on the same color helmet. You're going to put on the same color uniform, and you got to go out there and you have to be a team. It's not the Penn State guys and the Iowa State guys. It's not the Iowa State guys and the UCLA guys. You're all Penn State guys now. And that is a great challenge for any coach today collegiately. I feel like they've been able to meet it head on here at Penn State, and it so far has been successful.
Bringing you an in-depth look at Penn State sports and more. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. The Steve Jones Show is presented by Purdy Insurance and Sunbury Motor Company. Now from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Half hour brought to you by Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. Ford, Kia, Hyundai, the best in new inventory. Great pre-owned inventory with the all-important Sunbury Motors guarantee. Terrific service department. Quick lane inspections. Routine difficult. All at Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. Anytime I get to spend a few minutes with Gerry Dulac, I cherish. Gerry, welcome back to the show. It's so great to hear you.
Steve, always good to be with you, my friend. I hope you are well.
I am doing very well. And so I want to talk about Shinnecock Hills to start out with. Obviously, a brilliant layout. Part of the original in 1896 when they put the USG together and so forth. But why have they felt in some U.S. Opens that they've had to do some things to, quote, trick the course up a little bit? Why has the USGA over the years done a couple of things like that?
You know, Steve, first off, Shinnecock is my favorite U.S. Open venue. Obviously, I'm very partial to Oakmont, and I love Oakmont for any number of reasons. But I'll leave Oakmont out of the conversation.
Yeah.
Because of my partiality. But I love Shinnecock. I've been there twice for the Open. I've never played it, which is one of my regrets. A Pittsburgh guy, Jack Druga, was the head golf pro there for 18 years, and I never used that chip. Shame on me to try and go play there.
Yep.
I know. That's one of my great regrets.
Yeah.
But, I love the place. It has a great look. It plays fantastic. The weather, the wind can be a factor there because of the water. The number of golf courses on Long Island, I don't want to get into that, but, man, there are so many fantastic golf courses. You know, the Philadelphia region has a number of great golf courses. You know, Chicago, you know, even New York City, but Long Island is it's incredible. But anyway, I think what has happened, I don't think the USGA has tricked up Shinnecock as much as it has lost control of Shinnecock.
Yes. Thank you. That's better.
Because of those greens, Steve. Yeah. You know, the like a lot of places with some of the contours and slopes, you have to be careful with the speed. And so the speed is one thing. But this is what happens at the British Open. They slow their greens down because they know the weather with those winds can whip it across the layout and make the greens unplayable. So they slow them down. You don't see British Open greens roll at 13, 14, 15. They roll them at about 10.
Yep.
But that's what happened at Shinnecock. The wind and the weather became such a factor that some of those greens, I remember, I think it's number 7, the par 3. I remember being out there when it was on a Saturday. They had to come out and water the green in between groups because it was so unplayable. And that has happened twice. And that's what's not just at that green, but on the golf course. And that's what's happened out there. And again, I don't think it's a result of tricking it up as much as it is losing control of the golf course.
I used the wrong phrase. You used the correct phrase. And that's because it's such a great course. And like you and I have, let's just take it from like how you and I play. We've played golf courses that are really good. And I'll give you an example. A couple of weeks ago, the Big Ten announcers got together. We played a Tom Lehman course. And every green was pitched. Like, in other words, like we're trying to hit into it, and you may hit it 20 feet from the hole, and it just may, because I don't hit a backspin ball, do you? I mean, no, I don't.
Usually, I can. I have, but not like that.
Yeah, I mean, I can't.
I'm a high spin player, sometimes to my chagrin.
Yeah, well, I mean, the only time I'll get it is I can stop it sometimes. And it'll go up. So for players like you and me, I don't want to play that. Right? And I know this is the ultimate test of golf, but you know, there's got to be some. Does it really matter what under par is in the U.S. Open?
No, it's just a number. You know, Shinnecock's going to play par 70 at 7,400 some yards, which isn't really ridiculously long at all. I think the longest par 4 is 525, and that's nothing for these guys anymore. The way the way a lot of the younger players, especially, hit the ball. So, there's one par 3 that's 250, and I think the other ones are modest in length. So, yeah, it's not going to be about length at Shinnecock that's going to be a problem with the players. You know, as always with the U.S. Open, it's going to be the rough. But the one thing they've done at Shinnecock, they've widened the fairways. I think at Oakmont last year, I think the average width was 23 yards, if I'm not mistaken.
It sounds right.
On the fairways. And I think Shinnecock's like 34 yards, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
So, it's certainly not going to be about that either. They're going to have plenty of room to hit the ball. So I'm curious to see what the winning score is going to be. Look, it's not going to be, if it's under par, it's not going to be anything ridiculously low. It'd be lucky if it gets under 5.
Right.
It can become so difficult there, just in general. And like I said, it's firm greens are not. Rory McIlroy was saying this yesterday. He says some people think sometimes firmer greens make it more difficult. He says sometimes softer greens make it more difficult because you can't get the ball close to the pin with spin. Whereas with firmer greens, you actually know you can somewhat control the distance a little bit better, especially around the greens, within 100 yards, because you know the ball's going to roll out and not like all of a sudden stop on you, or you have some inconsistent lies or conditions, if you will. And so, the firmer greens by themselves don't necessarily give the problem, yes, the speed does. But firmer greens, I don't know that they're any more difficult for the most part than softer greens, especially within 100 yards. Now, anything out 200 yards gets a little bit more dicey, no question about it. But we're just going to see how it ends up playing at Shinnecock.
Scotty Scheffler has had another great year, but there's always that little fine line that has maybe kept him from winning several tournaments. What has been that little fine line that's been a just miss for him, where it's cost him a couple of strokes here and there, thus kept him out of the winner's circle at times?
Steve, I think it's the confidence in his putting. You can see there are a number of times when he gets inside 5 feet, 6 feet, 5 feet, where he just doesn't look confident stroking the ball. And it's a little bit of what happens with Jordan Spieth these days. Jordan Spieth has a couple other issues, but it's the same thing with him. Man, from 18 to 20 feet, and they've said this for years with Jordan, he gets outside 25 feet. His stroke is so much more comfortable than when he's inside 5 feet. And I think that's what you see with Scotty. He knows, if he has five footers, it seems like he's only making 3 of them. Or 3.5 of them, as opposed percentage-wise, as opposed to the 5 you would think, he would typically make when he's winning golf tournaments. So, to me, that seems the biggest problem. I know his iron game hasn't been terribly sharp, but it's sharp enough. It's sharp enough that that's not the biggest issue holding him back. His proximity to the hole is probably outside his normal range. I don't know what the latest stats are with that. I'm only guessing, only based on what I watch.
Sure.
But I think it's those makeable putts that aren't falling that's causing all these runner-up finishes and top 5 finishes instead of victories.
Okay, so when you look at a tournament like this, so often there are like let's face it, except for the guy that was, and I kid you not on this, Gerry, I was in covering the U.S. Open last year, and I was out there. The first day I was out there was the Wednesday practice round. And I'm standing inside the ropes, and I hear this group of college kids behind me. And J.J. Spawn walks up. He's going to play, I think it was the 9th hole. And I hear this one guy go, "That's my guy. I got him on FanDuel, J.J. Spawn." I'm like, oh. Well, I thought about that dude on Sunday. Right. But, you don't expect J.J. Spawn to win the tournament on Wednesday. Is there anybody in this field that is in that sleeper category to you?
The funny thing about J.J. Spawn, you didn't expect him to win before the rain delay on Sunday, the way he was playing.
Right.
His game was as sloppy as the weather eventually became. And yet he was the one guy who weathered, literally and figuratively weathered the storm and the conditions to win. When I look at that, the guy that I like in these situations is Robert McIntyre, a guy like that, to use your profile. Yeah. Somebody who's, Robert McIntyre, and I know he didn't play well at Augusta. I was surprised. But I think, he played very well at Oakmont last year. Mm-hmm. And he's not a guy who's going to overpower the golf course, but he's a tremendous long iron player. And so when I look at somebody like that, to answer your question, that he fits that profile. And when people ask me my 3 or my picks, I always like to not pick the favorites because anybody can do that. And of the 2, I actually like Rory more than I like Scotty Scheffler this week.
Agree.
But leaving those 2 out of it, Robert McIntyre is one of my 3 picks. My number 1 pick, I'll just tell you, that I believe is going to be Matthew Fitzpatrick.
Yes.
Former Open champ who's just so tough mentally, and he's been playing well all year with 3 wins. And the other one is a New Yorker who's played well in big tournaments, and that's Cam Young.
Yeah.
So when people ask me who do I like, those are my 3 picks. Matthew Fitzpatrick, Robert McIntyre, and Cam Young, and I think McIntyre fits that J.J. Spawn profile that you're mentioning.
I think Young has played brilliantly at times this year. Probably the best golf he's played. If I had to throw a dart as a sleeper in my mind that I think usually plays decently, it's Sepp Straka. I don't know what you think of his game.
I like Sepp Straka for that exact reason, because he hangs around leaderboards, and he has won, not a major, but yes, I like Sepp Straka, and certainly has plenty of length. But I'm with you there. That one wouldn't shock me either.
Yeah, a guy that's really up and down is Victor Hovland. What does he overthink the game?
Yeah, I actually think Xander Schauffele, Colin Morikawa overthinks the game a lot as well, but he has 2 major victories to his credit, so it's hard to, but whenever I'm around him and I listen to him, I'm amazed at the thought processes that go through his head. I mean, he thinks the game off the golf course like the way you or I might after we walk off Oakmont. Like, good Lord, what was that all about? You start thinking about everything you did wrong, or and what's wrong with my game. Victor Hovland has more downs than ups, and I like Victor Hovland. I think he's a really solid player. I think his Tour Championship win a couple of years ago, I don't want to say deluded people into thinking that he's going to win multiple majors, because we're still waiting for that. I like his game, but he's not a guy that I bet on, only because he's too inconsistent. Plays well, then goes into these little slumps. Then comes back and plays well and goes into these slumps. So I just, hey, maybe this is the week where it's that play well week, but it's too much inconsistency in his game and in his results at least for me, to like him a lot.
Yeah. I do have to ask the obligatory Bryson DeChambeau question, because if I had to pick one where I didn't think he'd ever have a chance of winning, it would be the U.S. Open, and he's won it twice. It's like, okay, I mean, I'm way off on this.
I agree with you, Steve, and I was just having this conversation with a friend of mine earlier, which is, I just can't imagine he's going to blow up like he has, and, like he did at Augusta and the PGA at Aronimink. I did not play well at Oakmont last year, so 3 of his past 4 majors, I can't remember how he played in the British, have not been impressive performances at all. They've been embarrassing for him. I just can't imagine that continuing to happen, and as you mentioned, he's a 2-time champ. He's not you would think the U.S. Open is not the tournament that he was going to win. And like you said, he has the two trophies already in the last 4 years. I mean, I always like Bryson, but I just want to see if he can bounce back from what we saw at Augusta and what we saw at the PGA. John Rahm's another guy. He played very well at both places, and he has a chance. Yeah. Certainly played well at Augusta, and he's always going to be a factor. He's a past champion as well, and obviously seeing him up on the board nobody's going to bat an eye at that one either. But I think there's going to be a lot of eyes on Bryson and Rahm for those reasons, to see if they can be the players that everybody expects them to be, and maybe contend again, for the championship.
I do have to get a football question here, and it's about what you think the league or even teams individually would think about Brendan Sorsby, because he obviously committed the cardinal sin of sports. Texas Tech gets bailed out by the supplemental draft, and it works differently with bids and so forth. But how do you think a team views it because of that issue, and how do you think the league views it because of his issues?
Steve, I hate to use a terrible pun to say that I'm not sure how many teams are willing to take a gamble on him.
Yeah.
But, his cardinal sin was betting on his own team, which he was accused of doing when he was at Indiana.
Yeah.
The league, all leagues do, but the NFL, somewhat hypocritically, but the NFL has very strict policies, as we have seen from gambling. We've seen 3 players be suspended, 1 for a year because of gambling.
Yep.
And so, gambling is an addiction. And with addictions, you're never recovered. You're just recovering for the rest of your life.
That's right.
And so even though he went to a treatment program, and I'm not here to cast aspersions on the guy, but that doesn't mean that my point being is that I think teams believe that doesn't mean he's cured of his addiction, because it's something he's probably going to battle. And I don't know that teams want to deal with that, or, to use another bad pun, roll the dice with that, Steve.
Right.
And so I don't know. But one thing I've learned about the NFL, they overlook a lot of things when it comes to trying to find a player, especially a quarterback, who they think can help them win. So here we go again. I'd be willing to bet somebody will take a chance on Sorsby. Maybe give up a second-round pick, for sure a third, but probably a second, and just keep their fingers crossed and work with the kid and see how it goes. Of course, now, all that being said, the league has to accept him for the draft, and then 2, we'll see what penalty that they, hand out to him. They may follow the lead of the NCAA, because the NCAA punished them, obviously, banned them from playing for Texas Tech. Now, the NFL, I don't think is going to do that, but I don't think there's any question if he comes into the league, there's going to be some kind of penalty, a 5-game suspension or something like that he's going to have to deal with, and, of course, the team that takes him has to deal with.
Because they did do that, and look, it's a ridiculous scenario now, but they did do that with Terrell Pryor. I mean,
That's right.
He had the 6-game suspension that the Big Ten had put on him, and the NFL stuck with it, and he was suspended for 6 after he went through the supplemental draft, by the way.
Yeah, he was the last quarterback taken in the supplemental draft, and and that was 2000, what was that, 11, 12, something like that?
Yeah.
And there hasn't been a player selected in the supplemental draft since 2019. So it's not something that teams gear up for. They have their draft choices, they have their team, they've gone through OTAs, mini camp, and when the draft occurs, they're usually into training camp. So, but that doesn't mean somebody won't take a chance, on a quarterback who a lot of people think has and would have a first-round grade on him if he were able to enter the NFL, the regular draft.
And again, here's the gamble, right? To use the pun again. Right. It is, I select him. Let's just say I use a first. I submit my bid, and my bid's a first. Well, that means I'm losing my first in the 2027 draft.
Yeah.
And see, that's the part where you have to make the decision. Is he worth losing that corresponding pick next April to make the pick now? And I think that becomes the role.
I would be shocked if somebody gave up a number 1 pick for him. I shouldn't say shocked, because nothing shocks me in the world of NFL and desperate general managers.
You and me
but
both.
I'd be very surprised if that were the case. I think the highest you will see because of his issues. Let's face it, most of the people, not all of them, most of the people in the supplemental draft are there because there are issues for one reason or another.
Yep.
And this issue is a very serious one in terms of the NFL and their policies, and the fact that it is an addiction. It's like alcohol. It's the same thing. It's an addiction that a person will fight has to fight the rest of his life.
I could go for 2 more hours just talking to him. The 2 of us out on a patio just talking about whatever.
There you go.
Okay. One of these days after a round of golf, we're going to do this. All right? Fair?
Steve, that would be the perfect scenario. Is play a little golf, go out on the patio or the porch or wherever, sit there, have a couple sodas, and chat some more. You can't ask for anything better.
You got that right, my friend. You are the best, and you know I mean that. Thank you so much.
Steve, always enjoyed being with you, my friend, anytime, as you know.
He's the greatest. Gerry Dulac. All right. Mark Wogenrich in the next half hour. This half hour brought to you by Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury, Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 in Hummels Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. Here on News Radio 1070 WKOK.